Thank you, BFSI, for arranging this session. Although I think this is towards the end, the session part of it. Yeah. So nothing left to me but to kind of summarize the day's events that have happened. Okay. And during the day, we have actually looked at various speakers talking about cryptographic agility, the C-bomb, the migration plan, right? The path towards that. But I think there is one thing which probably was not touched upon, which is what cryptography we are talking about, right? So we basically look at the cryptography. We basically look at a lot of jargons related to RSA, ECC, digital signing, TLS, right? And there are umpteen number of things that are there. So my job, which I have kind of taken an onus on me today, is to basically demystify the whole thing. Okay, and what we'll be doing is very an interesting exercise for you. Okay, we'll be taking one example of a mobile banking application within the banking context, or you can even suggest any of the application to just understand what will it mean to basically say that we truly become quantum safe. Now, another thing is every threat basically comes with an opportunity to kind of relook at our infrastructure part of it, right? So this threat, when we basically think about a transition plan, will it be sufficient to tell right now that if I just do the transition, let's say hypothetically today, if I just do a transition from the classical cryptography to post-quantum cryptography, is my job done from the security perspective? So what I'm going to do towards the end of the session is leave you with a thought, okay, saying, is there any alternative way of looking at it? Now I know that this is not a mythos session today. Okay, but what we are going to also do is basically talk on that threat vector as well and see if this opportunity or a threat that is presented today, we basically are able to address that as well. Okay, so that with that context, let me basically jump into this. Quiz time. Okay, that is the only way to basically make sure that all of us are awake. What is this on your screen? Enigma machine. Perfect, right? Fantastic. So that is the basically a beginning of a modern cryptography. Now there was a Q-Day event in Enigma machine as well. What was that? The Q-Day of Enigma machine. Anybody? When the Enigma machine was broken? Yeah, it is a German machine. Yeah, but this machine was broken, right? So this machine was broken by a guy called as Alan Turing. The computer. Computers were actually created for breaking of a cryptography. Okay, it sounds funny, but that's how it is, right? So that's where basically the cryptography started, the modern day cryptography, and it kind of progressed ahead inside that. Okay, so basically an encryption machine part of it. And I don't need to tell you, this is multiple times have been repeated this, that we are actually running on an invisible maths. Okay, but what is it? What maths and from where? So let us going to do a 1 minute crash course and you can time me. If you are able to finish that within 1 minute, I will basically treat myself with something. Cryptography in 1 minute. Or you guys can shout out from back there saying what is cryptography. Is it ECC is a cryptography, RSA is a cryptography, AES is a cryptography, what is it? Does it finish there or does it start there? Okay. See, cryptography is the whole objective of having a cryptography was that any two entities should be able to talk to each other with security and trust. Two words, right? Security and trust. Now, if you look at that from that perspective, just replacing one algorithm, will it work? Okay, let's think about it. So in this example that I'm going to present to you on the screen, what we are going to basically talk about, we are going to talk about two entities. One entity is called as Alice and another entity is called as Bob. Okay, now this Alice and this Bob could be anybody. It could be an ATM machine, it could be a mobile application, it could be an API, it could be a device, it could be a human, right? These entities could be anything. And as on date today, in our modern infrastructure, all of these entities are interacting with each other. Now when Alice wants to talk to Bob very, very securely, what does it mean? Does only encryption, if I am able to do an encryption, a post-quantum encryption for an example, if I am able to do a post-quantum encryption between Alice and Bob, will that be sufficient itself? Okay, question. So as far as the basic tenet of security are concerned, there are 5 tenets as we define it. The first is Do I have a provable identity? First, now when we basically think about an identity, we always think about an identifier, right? Even when we think about machine identities, we think about some secret which is stored by the machine and machine is proving. When you're talking about device, you are basically thinking about some kind of a device ID and all of that, right? In the truest sense, when the PKI was originated as a cryptographic identity, a tamper-proof which only you possess and you can prove to the other party, right? So that is the first primitive as far as the identity is concerned. Once the identity is established, what is the second thing that comes up immediately after that? Perfect, right? And authentication, by the way, has to be mutual. Okay, what does it mean? It means both of the parties are proving. In our infrastructure today, even if you look at any of your API gateways or mobile application, it is always one way. That's why the phishing happens, right? Because the guy who is submitting the credential does not know. Okay, that is the second tenet of security, right? And how do we ensure that? You use cryptography for that. Any examples of mutual authentication for the cryptography? In the cryptography domain, mutual authentication, how do we do? Any examples that anybody can shout out? Sorry? Swift transaction. But how do you execute a Swift transaction? What cryptography happens behind? Certificates, right? MTLS is the classic case. Absolutely correct. So mutual authentication, if you are able to instill a mutual authentication between two entities, you are having a mutual authentication today, which is probably not possible into the consumer domain. Third is the key exchange part of it, right? In the morning session, I don't know how many of you were there in a morning session when the OCBC thing happened, right? OCBC guy actually done a fantastic thing. So that's where there was confusion saying, okay, if I am thinking about a quantum safe encryption, what is it? Is it a MLKEM? Is it a quantum safe encryption? Okay, what is it? Encryption, basically before the encryption, you need to basically transfer the keys between Alice and Bob. That is what MLKEM is replacing, and we'll look at that at later point of time. Okay, that's a key exchange part of it. And once the key exchange is done, then you do the encryption. Okay, the encryption piece is done, and finally the digital signature where Alice wants a proof that it is a Bob. So any transaction, imagine guys, see, in any transaction that is there, that is happening across the world, if we are able to instill all of these 5 tenets, whether it is a mobile application, internet banking application, API channel, ATM channels, any of that variety, if we are cryptographically are able to instrument all of this, it would be a phenomenal thing that is there. Okay, so that's the cryptography part of it. Okay. Subsequent to that, now comes the quantum threat. I don't think I need to basically talk about it. This was a day-long session, so I will kind of skip it. Just show you the slide. Superposition, entanglement, exponential power, right? And that's where key takeaway is this. We all understand what does it mean. Unless somebody has a question, I will not explain this, right? This is all well understood. Quantum computing threats that are there, okay? And today and tomorrow, we have spoken a lot of times about RSA and ECC and all of that. So this is what it brings to the table. Anybody knows 2 algorithms which are going to be a threat to us? 2 algorithms that are going to be this? Yeah, RSA and ECC are at a threat, but which algorithm will break it? Shore and Agro. Perfect. Wonderful. Shore, which algorithm Shore will break and which algorithm Grover will break? Yeah. Sorry? RSA by Shore. And Grover क्या break करेगा? No. AES break नहीं करेगा मतलब okay, let me explain that quickly. PKI infrastructure asymmetric, what is 2 cryptography? Asymmetric cryptography, symmetric cryptography. Okay, large variant. In the asymmetric cryptography, how many you have? You have an RSA, you have ECC, you have DH, all of this where public key and private keys are different. In that case, what is going to happen? The Shore guy says that with sufficiently large quantum computer, I will be able to break that. That means even if I have a public key, I will be able to guess your private key. Correct? AES guy, okay, which is a Grover guy. What does the Grover guy do? Okay, interesting tidbit for you. When any defense establishment, when they go on offensive, when they start collecting the data, previous speaker actually spoke about harvest now, decrypt later, right? When they want to decrypt, when they want to break, what do? Okay, when this Alan Turing wanted to break, what does he do? What did he do? He basically built a machine to find all probabilistic patterns, right? Which is there within the ciphertext. And from the ciphertext, he was basically able to recover the key part of it. So what a Grover is going to do? Grover is a search algorithm. a very, very fast search algorithm that can run a quantum computer, right? So that means the exponentially this number of search that you need to do onto the machine will go down. That's the grower, and that's why it is a threat to a symmetric algorithm as well. Okay. So this is the summary part of it, right? Broken by the quantum. This is all we know. Okay. RSA, ECC, Diffie-Hellman, El-Gamal. El-Gamal I don't think anybody uses right now, or the digital signature algorithm. So what will survive in the classical? So what we are now not on the post-quantum cryptography guys right now. We are still on classical cryptography. In the classical cryptography, of course, the middle portion is the post-quantum cryptography as well. But AES 256, SHA, information theoretic secrecy and one-time pads. These are algorithms for today. This will survive. That means whenever I want to change something, okay, I will need to think about whether I am using this or any of that variety part of it. Okay. Now, who's the savior? Savior is the post-quantum cryptography. What is the definition of a post-quantum cryptography? Definition is very simple. Instead of basically using the pre-quantum algorithm, I'm going to use a new type of an algorithm which will run on classical computers and which will be not susceptible to, even if the adversary has a unbounded computational power, right? So that's the new lock. Okay, so it doesn't stop the cyber attacks. It will ensure that the lock itself will survive. What is it? That lock. The cryptography that will survive, part of it. Okay. Now this, you again want to basically take a screenshot, but you don't need to take a screenshot of this. This is all available on the ChatGPT, NIST, all the domains that is there. What is it? But it is important to understand what those algorithms are, right? So MLKM, and you can see the last portion of what it replaces. Okay. That is what the replacement will happen. One more thing, one more important thing. I have written a word US here. Okay. Now this is an extremely critical point for us to understand from our country perspective. Okay. We actually speak about NIST as a standard, right? Can I ask you guys a question? NIST, is it a global body of a standard? It is a US body. And do you know in under which department of US it comes? Department of Defense has whatever Department of Commerce, right? So it is, see, it is a very funny thing. Department of Commerce having a standards body aligned, because see, US is a capitalistic society, and that's why. And of course, as the gentleman there mentioned, there has been a close ties as well with NSA. Okay, so that's why we have to be cognizant. We are, as a country, we have to be cognizant of what adoption that we are doing. Okay. Now, he has basically the DS. These guys have basically told me to declare this as a beginning of it itself. As far as India is concerned, do you guys know that we do not have our own standards of cryptography as on date today? But what is the importance of that? Do we need to have really a standard? Because all of this heavy work is done by the US guys, right? They have done evaluation for 8 years, right? They have declared and everything. Is there a real need for having our own cryptography part of it? Our own standards? Yes, that's correct. Simple example, triple DES scheme. How many guys you know? Triple DES scheme was there. What has happened with the triple DES scheme? There was a backdoor. And who was put in the backdoor? It was an NIST standard. There was an NSA nexus, right? In the current geopolitical era, when we are thinking about as critical activity like this, when we are talking about a cryptography, don't you guys think that we need to have our own standards? Okay. Now, these guys have done phenomenal job. The DSCI. DSCI has constituted basically a committee of expert cryptographers. Okay, I categorically stopped on this slide because I wanted to make a point here. And this is my job as a patriot, right, as a part of a National Quantum Mission Task Force member, to familiarize everybody about it, and I keep on shouting on every forum. Okay, first initiative was done by DSCI to constitute a CSAFE. What is the job of a CSAFE? CSAFE job is to evaluate the companies or the research that is happening in the post-quantum cryptography domain. Proud to tell you, we have been the first company, and probably the declaration will happen soon. But my wish is that there should be more companies like us. And just like this table should be filled with our own algorithms as well. That is there. Okay, so this is just an introduction to post-quantum cryptography, but that word is important, and we have to basically adopt it with an open eyes as far as that is concerned. Okay, so coming back to this now, MLKEM, MLDSA, I think these are clear. MLKEM is a replacement of what? RSA, ACC, right? PKI. MLDSA is the certificates, digital signature. You have SLSDSA, which is a backup of this, which is again a digital signature algorithm. And then you have a Falcon, which is also coming up, right? So how many algorithms? There are 4 algorithms that are there, and there is a replacement. And this is also the parameter set that one needs to be cognizant about. What is this parameter set about? Anybody can tell me what is this parameters? This parameters? Perfect, right? So this kind of goes from normal to paranoid. Whenever you need a highest level of security, the parameter selection has to be paranoid. Okay, and that's where even now, that's where the crypto agility comes inside this as well. Not only between classical and all of that, even in the parameter selection part of it. What parameter I am selection. Now let me make your life more miserable, okay, than it is already. This is the misery. What is this misery? US NIST around 4 candidates. How many candidates? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 7 more candidates which are getting finalized right now on top of 4. That means there would be 11 more candidates. Now imagine what will happen to our cryptographic agility. Unless and until we have a right module which is basically really crypto agile, you won't be able to basically implement all of this that is there, right? So that's the key message here. Whenever we think about here infrastructure part of it and our post-quantum cryptography migration plan, we have to actually think about not today's algorithm, but even the future algorithm. And you'll see that this is basically based on different mathematical models as well. Okay, and probably applicable for different areas as well. The use cases are also mentioned there, what they are applicable for. Some of those will be for an IoT domain. I'm pretty sure your banking infrastructure is going to go that way into an IoT domain as well. Okay, inside that. Now from the answer perspective, I think this we have already discussed in the lot of sessions that are there. But again, from the demystification perspective, we will start with classical. We will go with hybrid. What is a hybrid? Hybrid is a combination of classical as well as a post-quantum cryptography. And then that's where we will basically do the transition. So classical to hybrid to post-quantum. So that means whatever products that we are evaluating right now, it should be able to support both classical as well as the post-quantum cryptography as well. That's where the hybrid model. So you will have a fallback plan inside that. Okay. This is one more scare session for you. So this is quantum attack, and the full spectrum of threat is not only a quantum, right? The whole house. What is Mythos is going to do? Mythos is going to attack your entire house as well. Okay. I don't need to speak more on that. I'm pretty sure that you guys have thought about it. Mythos and even our finance ministry have taken a cognizant on that and all of that variety. Okay. Now, before I kind of jump into now what I'm basically moving towards is thinking about a new way. So the thought I wanted to leave with you guys is there a new kind of an infrastructure that we can think about as on date today. I know it is a complex exercise. It may not be our mandate as of now to think about a new type of an infrastructure as well, right? But this kind of presents us an opportunity to take a leadership role. So this is a quick quiz session. This may be you may relate to all of this, right? So what I wanted to basically show you is what is our cryptographic sprawl today across how many actors and all of that. So this is familiar, right? So mobile app, external firewall, load balancer, right? API gateway, internal firewall, middleware, mobile banking server, core banking system. That is the typical architecture. And you can actually put any kind of a different architectures within that. You have a multi-layer architecture as far as for your digital transformation journeys. Quiz. In that architecture, how many identities needs to be secure in the app of the customer? Approximately? One? Okay. All, yeah, how many identities? No. So if let's say as a Nilesh, I have an app, right? And I'm using that app, just protecting Nilesh's identity, will that be sufficient? Rephrasing of the question. How many identities then? What all identities I need to secure within that? Cryptography? Huh? Non-human identity is absolutely correct, right? So there are at least 5 different type of an identities that we need to protect today for securing your mobile banking app. Okay, you guys, if you would have done implementation, you would have done implementation for app seal, right? What is it doing? It is basically protecting my app, but is it protecting my app identity? Probably not. App identity I might be protecting by SSL pinning, right? Part of it. So that is one. Second is your APIs. Does your API has an API key? What does the API key does? The API key gives the API and identity part of it, right? Then you have an SDKs, then you have the humans, right? So at least 5 different type of an identities that we need to protect, okay, within one mobile app, and that creates a complexity. Any of this identity gets broken, right? It gets broken. How do these identities authenticate themselves? Second question. Now you can see where I'm going with this. Humans protect using on-device biometric or pins. APIs protect using API key, right? App protects using some SSL pinning, right? Which can be unpinned with FIDA and all of that. That's why we need app seal. How do you protect your SDK? Probably I do a hash check of an SDKs and all of that, right? So multiple identities. So these authentication mechanisms are also different. How do these identities gain authorization? API gateway basically authorizes my API, right? Human identities is basically authorized on my IDAM, and the list actually goes on, right? And how does the trust flow from the app? Right where the transaction has originated from the mobile banking app, does it reach in the same shape and form? See, all of this I'm saying, why I'm saying all of this? Because all of these are actually a cryptographic functions that are happening as on date today. And we are not only worried about TLS, we'll have to worry about all of this when we think about a migration, right? How do you do an authentication? Authentication is happening in hash function, right? And I write some hash function is there that I need to think about. What about APIs? How are they getting authenticated? All of this actually nobody talks about it, because what? Because they have a solution that they want to sell, right? That's a simple thing. But as a practitioner, we actually have to take care of all of these things together, right? Bank needs to encrypt the PI data. How it will do it? Okay, only God knows. So this is what it is. Right, so you have too many tools, too many trust silos, and fragmented cryptographic workflows. What does it mean? Every tool that you have will have a fragment of a cryptography. Your API gateway will have a fragment, your IDAM will have a fragment, your VPN is doing its own cryptography, and the list actually goes on, right? So what is missing inside this? Patching may not be the solution, right? As far as quantum insight. That's where I'm going to leave you guys with a thought, and of course I am available outside as well if you want to do the more discussion on that as well. Is the missing trust layer. Just imagine, just for the heck of it, I know it is difficult, just imagine that what if there is a missing trust layer where I am able to basically do within one centralized infrastructure identity, authentication, key exchange, encryption, API trust and everything within one thing, and you are able to consume within the top layer part of it, right? The digital business, which is, and your infrastructure is down below. As on date today, there are silos that are here. So when we think about migration, we have to think about all those silos. That's where we think about all the CBOMs, and CBOM vendor will tell you probabilistic, sir, right? I may be able to discover around 70%. If you give me a binary file, I may be promise you 70% or 60%, right? If you have a source code, yeah, I have a certainty, but we don't have a source code. We are using a common off the shelf certificates that is there, right? So that's where the missing trust layer is there, and this is probably the time to kind of think about it, right? From the architectural perspective, what that missing trust layer can look like inside that. So this is the thought. A solution that's crypto agile, that eliminates the attack surface by ensuring that there is no static threats to steal, no trust chain to traverse, and no implicit boundaries to exploit, right? Now, how can this possible? Is it possible? Whatever I'm speaking, this looks like a holy grail. Like this looks like a holy grail, right? But this is possible if there is a trust or the cryptographic enforcement that I can ensure at every interaction that is happening between different digital entities part of it. Okay, that's the thought. Okay, so it is time to rethink the trust architecture, not just patch it. Let us connect back to our first story between the Alice and Bob. identity must be cryptographic. And by the way, there are tools today available by which you can actually enforce a cryptographic identity towards every entity that is there. You guys are already doing it. When you think about API security, you say that I have a TLS certificate, right? That I'm whitelisting. When you think about humans, probably not in terms of consumer, but internally, you might be using FIDO or some of this variety. It is cryptographic, right? So that's where it kind of goes inside. Authentication must be mutual. Always have to think about it. Trust must be provable, and keys should follow the identity. Authorization must be cryptographic. Okay? So that's where I think that's where I will leave you guys. Okay? So this is based on the time that was permitted to me. They didn't allow me to basically do the full session with you, but I'm happy to do that. But there are two key messages that I want to give you. This is one message: a sovereign nation defends itself in every domain. Cyber is the domain that we need to defend in. That means sovereignty does not stop only saying that my data should reside here. Sovereignty should actually start at whether whatever tools I'm using right now, does any state nation have control on top of it. Okay, so that is one. Second is, we can take a leadership position today by saying I can design my own trust architecture. Okay, when I go back into the bank, can I propose a new kind of a trust architecture which may basically fulfill the 5 tenets of security that we have spoken about in every entity. Thank you so much.